What is up, everyone? This is JuvyD coming at you again with that beginner player primer. Now, the reason I'm making this is because as a new player in Duelyst, this game can be a little overwhelming, right? You have 6 different factions to choose from. Each faction has 2 different generals that you have to pick before you even start making your deck. And then once you pick your general and your faction, you have a ton of faction-specific cards and then even more neutral cards. And you have to figure out what playstyle you want to do, what cards you need to craft to be competitive on the ladder, and all that other stuff. So what I'm going to do is give you an overview of each faction, how they like to play, and then a rare, super rare, and legendary card you have to craft to make them work. Without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so in Duelyst, you have 6 factions, including Songhai, Vetruvian, Magmar, Lyonar, Vanar, and Abyssian. Okay, so first up we have Songhai, and Songhai, whether you play Riva or the original general, you want to play super aggro. Songhai looks for fast games, you're going for the general's face, and you do so by spamming spells. There's a lot of really great Songhai spells out there, but your main one is Phoenix Fire. And then you're going to maintain board control through creatures like Lantern Fox, spells like Twin Strike, just so you're not giving up too much control of the board while you're going straight for the enemy general's face. Lightbender is great because it's an AoE Dispel. It can get you out of Provoke and a couple of other tricky situations. Lantern Fox is a must-have because it gives you more Phoenix Fires. And then Spelljammer's nice because you're spamming a lot more cards than your opponent probably is, unless they're also running Hyper Aggro. So that extra draw is going to make sure that your hand doesn't get too depleted, and gives you great value in the long run. And it can be used for other decks, so it's worth crafting. And that leads us into Vetruvian, another aggro-style faction. Now, it's worth noting this is mostly for traditional Vetruvian, and by that I mean Xerix the General, the original Vetruvian, whereas Saj plays more of an artifact-type play style that I'll get into in a later video because it's a little too complex to quickly cover. But traditional Vetruvian runs Xerix, and it plays super aggro. You go for the enemy general's face, but instead of spamming spells, you're spamming Wind Dervishes, which is part of your Bloodborne spell. Then you power those dervishes up and you just take down the enemy general super fast. I suggest that you get the Sojourner because it gives you extra draw, which is super strong, and it can be used in any deck. Star's Fury can end games, especially against decks like Swarm Abyssian, and the Imara Healer is just great for late game because it gives you that provoke, stops the enemy general from killing you, gives you a heal, and more damage to the enemy general's face. So get those cards. Up third, we have that bad boy Magmar. His main style is control. What you want to do with Magmar is you want to control the board until you can get some of your really big creatures out. And it's really easy to do that because you have a ton of really good 3 and 4 drops. Rebirth can dictate the pace of the game, and the general can empower himself. Traditional Magmar can. And he can just swing games in a moment's notice. The cards that I think you absolutely need to have are the Elucidator, really great card, 5/4 with Rush for 4 mana. Then the War Beast is another great one, 4/4 with Frenzy is amazing. And then when you're climbing up in Silver and Gold, I think Chrysalis Burst can be really, really solid. I noticed that in Diamond play, it seems those players know how to work around it a little bit better. But in Silver and Gold, it can just win you a game because you have 4 eggs that the enemy has to deal with now. So I think it's worth running in your deck and crafting because I think it'll get you a lot of value. Lyonar is another control style faction. What makes him different than Magmar is he has so many taunts. Not only that, but you also see a lot of buffs and healing in his decks typically. The cards that I think you need to have are Ironcliff Guardian because it's probably his strongest taunt. Not only that, but if you draw luckily, you can actually turn him into a rush style deck if you play Ironcliff with 2 Divine Bonds. That gives him 23 attack, assuming he's at max health. So that's something to look at. Holy Immolation is great to regain control of the board. It's also a heal, and it does a ton of damage, 4 damage, AoE. It's amazing. And then Grandmaster Ziri is just a fun card, or Zir, not sure how you say that. But it's just a fun card because basically when your general dies, you get a new one with 5 damage and 12 health. That's really incredible, and a little cheeky trick you can do with this is use Divine Bond while it's still a creature, so then you have a general with 17 attack and 12 health. It's pretty devastating, and it gives you that second win, and you can have 3 of them in your deck. Next up is Vanar, and this is a tempo-styled faction. Honestly, both Generals' Bloodborne spells are really strong right now. One of them does 2 damage in a row, and the other gives every card in your hand a +1/+1 buff. So both are really strong. And the idea of tempo is everything you play should trade really well into whatever your opponent is playing. So you're constantly one step ahead of whoever you're going against. Infiltrate is a great way to ensure that you do that. A lot of their cards have the Infiltrate ability, which they get some kind of buff for being on the opposite side of the map of where they started. The cards that I really think you need are Snow Chaser, just because it's really annoying and it gets a lot of value. Razorback, because I think it's a really strong buff for either general. And then finally, the Spellbinder, I think it's just in a really annoying way, because your opponent's going to want to dispel a lot of your creatures, and if you put down the Spellbinder, it kind of ensures that they have a difficulty in doing that, and it's just a really strong card in my opinion. It's a neutral, you can use it in a lot of decks that I've already talked about with a lot of factions. I just think that for Vanar, it's a little extra strong, just because there's so much annoying stuff you're putting down on the board. And last but not least, we have Abyssian, and it's kind of hard to cover Abyssian as a faction because both generals have such different win conditions, but I'm going to try my best. So both generals definitely play a combo style, and what I mean by combo style is the cards on their own aren't necessarily super powerful. You can see just by the rares I've listed below, 4 mana for a 3/3, 5 mana for a 4/4, but when you combo them with other cards in the Abyssian faction, they become incredibly strong. Lilith, she wants to swarm the board with 1/1 Wraithlings, power them up, do a lot of damage to the enemy's face, etc, etc. Kasiva does high AoE damage late game with Shadow Creep spaces, more specifically Shadow Nova. But the Blood Moon Priestess and Shadow Dancer, you only need those, and Deathfire Crescendo for that matter. Those are Lilith cards. I'll get into Kasiva decks in another video, because there's not enough time to cover them right now. Plus, I think Lilith is a little bit stronger. So yeah. So that does it for the beginner player primer. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure you like the video or dislike it if you absolutely hated it. Subscribe to my channel to keep up with my content. And if you haven't already, go check out that top 5 deck list that I made. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. That's in the description of the video. And other than that, thank you so much for showing love and support. Good luck climbing the ladder.